Hello, today I would like to go over a really fun activity that you can utilize with your alternately assessed students when you're working on the Science Essential Element 5, PS 2-1. And that activity that we're going to work on today is called Oreo moon phases. And as you can see here from the picture, you are simply just using Oreo cookies, a paper plate, and whether your students want to use a spoon or a toothpick or any sort of their fingers, anything to get the cream. They can even use a plastic knife or a spreader to just get the cream and move it around on the Oreo cookie so that we can make all the different Oreo moon phases. And so it's a super fun activity that I like to do with my students. And as we'll go through, I will show you some various different ways. We have our lesson objective, which is students will create the moon phases using Oreo cookies. And after we look through our little book, I will show you the various graphic organizers you can use. And what I like about this particular activity is that you can model this for your students. If your students aren't able to have Oreo cookies, if they weren't able to gather them, if the parents or guardians weren't able to get them for them, that is totally fine. You can gather those materials and you can model for your students and then go through using a Jamboard for your students to color in what it is that they see using their observation, right? So let's go through first. I'm going to share with you a story I really like to play for my students. It is a read aloud by Eric Carle called Papa, Please Get the Moon for Me. And I found this read aloud on YouTube. And I really like this because it is a literary work that kind of acts as if the moon is shrinking and then growing. And although we know that the moon doesn't necessarily shrink or grow, it appears that way. So that's also something you can discuss with your students after you go through this read aloud, is whether or not the moon actually gets smaller or whether it just seems like it does. Does it look like it does, or does it actually shrink and get big, right? So this is a really fun read aloud. I like to play it. It's very vibrant with its colors. It's not very long. It's only 2 minutes. So it's a really quick little read aloud that you can share with your students to get them excited for the activity that you guys are either going to do or that they're going to watch.
Papa, please get the moon for me. By Eric Carle. Before Monica went to bed, she looked out of her window and saw the moon. The moon looked so near. I wish I could play with the moon, thought Monica, and reached for it. But no matter how much she stretched, she could not touch the moon. Papa, said Monica to her father, please get the moon for me. Papa got a very long ladder. He carried the ladder towards a very high mountain. Then Papa put the very long ladder on top of the very high mountain. Up and up and up he climbed. Papa finally got to the moon. My daughter Monica would like to play with you, said Papa, but you are much too big. Every night I get a little smaller, said the moon. When I am just the right size, you can take me with you. And indeed, the moon got smaller and smaller and smaller. When the moon was just the right size, Papa took it. Down and down and down he climbed. Here, said Papa to Monica, I have the moon for you. Monica jumped and danced with the moon. She hugged the moon and threw it into the air. The moon kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and finally it disappeared altogether. Then, one night, Monica saw a thin sliver of the moon reappear. Each night, the moon grew and grew and grew. The end.
Okay, guys. So that is a really awesome story that you can have read aloud to your students to get them excited about it. Like I said, you can talk about whether or not the moon actually does shrink and get bigger, or if it doesn't. And then afterwards, you can go through and you can show your students how you can break apart the Oreos and spread out the cream. So let me show you some of the graphic organizers that I use with my students, and I'm going to show you some different types. So I found all these graphic organizers for free on Teachers Pay Teachers. Here's one of them. It's Phases of the Moon with Oreo cookies, you can see here. And it goes from the new moon to waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon, waning gibbous, last quarter, and waning crescent. So now you can have your students go in and they can color in what this looks like, right? So if we were looking at the waxing crescent, we would go to our markers. I would get my thick marker. I'm going to use the black one. And then we would have our waxing crescent. So I would draw a line just like this. And then I would color all this in dark so that we had the cream was white, and then here's all my cookie, right? So you can have your students go in, you can have them either use the model that you just showed them, you can have them look at the picture that I had on the first slide, and you can go in and have them color it in to represent what either they just showed you. So you can have some students coloring it in, or you can have the students actually going through with the Oreo cookie and taking out the cream to only make the cream be over here, right? So you can go through, and then again, you can go have them color. You can have students take turns while they're doing this, or you can have each student create their own, right? So you can very simply, I'll show you after I finish coloring this one in, you can go in and you can have your, you can duplicate all of these graphic organizers if you like to have each of your students have a observation paper here. You can use this as observation recording using the graphic organizer, so they can go in and they can color in each of the cookies to how they look if you want to model with the Oreo cookie for them after you show them how you move the cream around, take out the cream, add some cream, and you can very simply go in and just add a bunch of different graphic organizers for however many students that you have. You simply do that by clicking on these buttons right here where it says duplicate, and you can make as many as your students need. I'm also going to show you a different graphic organizer that I use. This is a different one where it actually has the Earth, and then it has the moon going around the Earth, and it also has the sun here. So I like this one a lot too because it has actual solar system, the representation of the sun and the earth, and how the moon goes around the earth, right, revolves around the earth. So we want to definitely use different ones, whatever you like I said. Find the best graphic organizer that works for you. Teachers Pay Teachers is a great site for that. And then you can again go in and have your students go and start coloring in the various different moon phases, right? So whether or not they are using the Oreo cookie, or if you prefer to be able to have them go in and color it in, they can absolutely do that. Like I said, they can just go in on that Jamboard and color it on in just like that to represent each of the phases. And you can actually have the cookie as representation for them if they are coloring it in. So I think this is a great fun activity for your students to use. They can either use the Oreo cookie, or they can just use their observation this way. So I hope you have fun doing this with your students, and I hope they enjoy.